We're going to start off this segment with a stat. 30 shots to 3. That's how many shots Manchester City had. This game had everything, though, didn't it? It had a fight with a player and a coach. It had VAR drama. What were your main takeaways?
Listen, I think the biggest takeaway has to be how good are Manchester City? Some may argue with 30 shots you only score 2 goals, but you've got to give credit to Lloris in goal, and you've got to give credit that Tottenham's defenders, in fact everybody in a Tottenham jersey, did every single thing they could to block a shot, make a challenge. I mean, they fought for their lives today, and really that's how they ended up with the point. Because any other side, most other sides, this would have been 6 or 7 and the game would have been over by half time. But Tottenham never gave up the ghost. They stayed with it. I've kind of gone off what I wanted to tell you about how good City were, but as you said, it had everything. But Manchester City, you talk about free-flowing football and creating opportunities. Quite frankly, there's not a better team right now on the planet at doing that than City.
Yeah, and forgetting results for a second, because I think this is one of the games where the result doesn't tell the entire picture of the game. But what we saw from City today, they were unplayable, weren't they?
Again, it's hard not to look back at the actual scoreline of the game. But as far as showing what they're all about, as far as showing how good they are, as far as showing why they've won the last 2 Premier League titles, they pretty much did it all today. You know, that final piece of putting the ball in the net more often was missing a little, but the football they played was quite scintillating.
Brilliant. Well, someone who has put the ball in the net for Manchester City is Raheem Sterling. 4 goals now in the first 2 matches in the Premier League. Is he now bordering world class? And what's Pep done to get the best out of him?
Well, number one, he is world class. I used to think he was a very good player. I used to think that he relied too much on his pace rather than his football brain. But today, as we speak, he's reached a level of world class, and he's reached a level where now he's almost 2 steps ahead of everybody else. He reads what his teammates are going to do. He reads what the opposition are going to do. And most of all, in front of goal, he has found a composure and an ability and an accuracy that was missing up until Pep Guardiola arrived.
Stevie, if there's something you hate, it's sensationalism. We saw Agüero come out he was subbed off by Pep Guardiola. There was a bit of a row between the two. I saw that it made all the waves on social media, but you weren't having it. Right away you said, this happens.
This happens all the time. It just so happens that now there are so many cameras and they can basically follow everybody at all times. Now, a star player coming off and not being happy about it is nothing new. And Pep Guardiola, who's so into the game, so into what his team does, and so into his boys, his players, that he can't help himself but try and tell them what they weren't doing right and what to do. So you've got a conflict. You've got a conflict of a player who's not happy being brought off, and a coach who just wants to make sure that he lets him know what he thought he could have done better. That's all you saw there. And of course, at the end of not at the end of the game, but after City had thought they had won the game with a late goal from Jesus, you saw the 2 of them hugging each other and talking.
There we go.
That's respect. That's what that is. Yeah. If you can have a disagreement and then 5 minutes later you have that respect back, that tells you what sort of it tells you how Pep and his players respect each other, basically.
Yeah, and a player like Agüero coming off, it's also because Gabriel Jesus, David Silva, and Riyad Mahrez were the 3 off the bench. This is an incredible team that they have, and maybe the deepest in the Premier League. So is anything else other than a Premier League trophy a disappointment, a massive disappointment for City?
Listen, when you've already won it twice, I wouldn't suggest that not winning it 3 times in a row would be a massive disappointment. I think for Pep and his players it would be, but I think for everybody else we should actually calm down. I don't think there's any doubt that the Champions League is what the owners of Manchester City are looking for. If they could swap a Premier League title for a Champions League, they would do it in a heartbeat. I'm not so sure Pep would, but listen, if this City team wins nothing this year, which I highly doubt, the one thing you know is you're going to be entertained between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, and we were entertained. but you know that we can't finish a match reaction now in the Premier League without VAR talk, because it reared its head yet again. Obviously, if you're a Spurs fan or a City fan, you might have a bit of a different reaction towards the call. You agreed with it, but do you feel like most of the negative reactions toward VAR is more on an emotional level, where every fan now in the stadium, you see a goal go in, and in the back of your mind, you're thinking, is VAR going to check it? Are we going to see that rectangular sign by the referee?
Well, yes, we are, and of course we are, and of course we should. Listen, if we didn't have VAR, Manchester City would have won this game 3-2.
Yeah.
But it would have been a rogue decision, because we now know, because we have VAR, that when there's a ball hits the net, we check it. We want to make sure that it's right. Because if it's not, then it's not fair on the team that loses the goal. I mean, all these people that are arguing about VAR, are they really suggesting that it's unfair on the team that scored, or unfair on the team that let the goal in? It's nonsense. We've got a clear picture of something that's right or wrong. And if you have a problem with getting a right decision, then really you need to have a word with yourself.
Do you feel, though, and even last week we saw it, where it's an offside decision that's maybe a few millimeters, do you feel like in that instance where it's that close to call, that the offensive player should have the advantage?
Was he off or was he on?
There we go. And that's your...
Was he off or was he...
I agree with you, but I think...
So he was off?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that if you're off.
So are we going to try and figure out a way of getting players that were offside onside? Are we just going to do anything to make sure that the ball or the goal's given, whether it's offside or not? Is that where we're going? Because that's what it seems like. Some people are just not happy. At the end of the day, it's about getting the right decision. And whether it's a millimetre or 2 millimetres or half a millimetre, it's off, then it's off, and it's a right decision.
I'm on your side about that. You heard it from Stevie Nicol. He just wants fairness. It doesn't matter how much you're off by. If you're off, you're off. Manchester City, though, not able to get all 3 points, only a draw against Tottenham as we finish off Saturday in the Premier League.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPNFC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.